All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to Unlocking Social Emotional Learning, Fostering Student Growth and Resilience. My name is Chris Dudick. I'm the founder of SILAS and the general manager now at Central Reach. Dr. Trainor.
And I'm Nicole Trainor. I'm the pre-K through 12 social emotional learning coach for Long Branch Public Schools, where I've worked for almost 25 years now in various roles. So it seems, based on the polling results, that many of the participants on this call either have little to no experience in SEL and the competencies and are looking for information on, PD topics or different ways to integrate it into their classrooms. So why is SEL so important? So we've all been through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we know that it's been a few years now, and everybody had experienced different traumas, different mental health issues during the crisis, and we are still struggling with that, right? So our teachers are struggling with mental health concerns, our children from as early as preschool, we're seeing struggling with mental health issues. That social isolation, the remote learning, and too much screen time has negatively impacted our children's mental health, but their interpersonal and relationship skills. And we've seen since we've come back over the past about 2 years that our children aren't comfortable forming those friendships, right? They're sitting next to each other at a table in the lunchroom, but they're not talking to one another, they're not interacting. Everything is through their phone. So SEL is more important now than ever before because we really have to go back to the basics and get them comfortable with their interpersonal skills, get them comfortable with themselves. Those traumas from COVID, they're not going to go away, but we have found and research has shown that supportive relationships and reestablishing that sense of safety and security in school will help our children succeed, right? We need to help them build those relationships, that resiliency. We found that since COVID, they kind of give up. They're not trying to persevere through the work. If something is hard, they just give up. So taking the time to work on these SEL skills is going to help them not only academically, but emotionally as well, right? We need to work on giving them those coping skills to help them deal with those intense emotions. We've seen since over the past few years, we've seen an increase in depression and anxiety for children and adults. We've seen an increase in absenteeism. A lot of schools are struggling to get their students to come back to school. And we've seen an increase in school phobias. We have children that are too afraid to come back into the building. We've also seen an increase in bullying and a difficulty making friends. And, that had to do with the isolation, and also social media is not helping. And we've seen an increase in struggles with emotional regulation. Our students are coming in dysregulated and need that practice building those regulation skills. So if our students can't regulate their emotions, they can't learn. That's the first part of learning. It's the foundation. They must be self-regulated in order to pay attention and have that task persistence to complete the assignments. They need to be able to calm down when they're upset or mad or frustrated. And they need to be able to work and play with others and learn how to respect different opinions and ideas. SEL is for everyone, not just for students we see presenting with behaviors or those that we know are exposed to trauma, because no one's going to be able to escape dealing with a trauma, right, at some point in our lives. We're going to lose a loved one. You may get into a car accident, not get into that college of a choice or the job that you wanted, a relationship doesn't work out. Without teaching our children how to cope with these challenges, we're not preparing them for the future. And I just love that infographic because for me, it speaks volumes, right? Because we don't know the baggage that our students and that our staff really, are coming to school with on a daily basis. So if we're not giving them the tools to work through those baggages, we're not going to set them up for success. So this is the CASEL wheel. And in the email, when we send out the video later on, there'll be links to the CASEL website. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a great starting point. They have a ton of resources for school districts and gives you kind of like a step-by-step outline. They have roadmaps on getting started with SEL in your school district. So if you're really at that starting point, I would suggest that CASEL website, casel.org, to do some research and kind of get you started. But this is the CASEL wheel. So there are 5 competencies for social emotional learning. And the first one we always start with is self-awareness, right? We have to have an awareness of ourselves and understand our emotions and kind of get that self-confidence. So that's really where we start with our students, right? Building up that accurate perception of ourselves, right? How many of us as adults don't have, we can list our flaws, but maybe we can't list our strengths as easy. So these are skills, that not only our students need to work on, but as adults, we all need to continue to learn and grow through it well. Then we move on to self-management, right? So once I've identified my feelings and I know how it is that I'm feeling, how am I going to manage that? How am I going to work on dealing with my stress? So self-management is really those mindfulness practices, the breathing techniques, that motivation, right? How to set goals that are realistic. If I've never played basketball before, I probably am not going to say, I want to be in the NBA, because it's probably not going to happen. Then you move on to social awareness, right? So what my life is like outside of just myself and my circle, right? So that's learning perspective taking. That's empathy. Empathy is huge for social awareness. Understanding how other people are feeling, respecting other people. Then you go into relationship skills, right? So teaching the children how to communicate effectively, how to work together as a team. Sometimes teachers get frustrated because we give them this great team activity, but we haven't really practiced and taught them how to work together. It's not something that comes naturally for everyone, and some children will need that reinforcement time and time again. It's also about having healthy relationships, right? As they get older as adults, and learning their worth and their value, and making sure that they're surrounding themselves with people that are going to support them. And then the last one is responsible decision making. So how can I solve a problem, right? Do I take many years to decide what I want to do? You want to teach the children, that we need to think about our decisions before we just, act on something, but we also don't want to take too long to overthink. So it's about really practicing that responsible decision making. These are all things that you can work on and teach them explicitly in the classroom. And it's also these competencies align with all of your content standards, where you can be talking about responsible decision making and empathy and how you think somebody was feeling during ELA or social studies, and different components like that. So SEL, as I said before, is important for everyone, right? Everyone needs it. Everyone can work on it. It's something that will take time, but it's also really important for children with special needs. So how does SEL marry into working with children with special needs? First, some districts are adding SEL related IEP goals. So they're working on emotion identification. They're working on self-regulation to teach them those SEL skills. If I can regulate my emotions, I can pay attention to the teacher longer. If I have task persistence, I can work towards that goal without getting frustrated. So all of these skills are important to help not only all of our students, but our students that are really struggling to learn that academic content. SEL helps with skill deficits, like difficulties with emotional regulation, with impulse control, and that's common in students with autism or ADHD. If students struggle with academic concepts, it can lead to frustration and outbursts. Our self-management skills, so any of those breathing exercises, mindfulness, meditations, different activities like that, helps to decrease not only the frequency, but the intensity and duration of those outbursts. And it also helps build their self-confidence, right? If I'm struggling with a concept and I can't figure out how to learn it, I'm going to start to feel bad and I'm going to internalize it. So building on their SEL skills and that self-confidence and that growth mindset of the self-management will really help them change their feelings from I can't do it to I can't do it yet. SEL skills build self-confidence. Like I said, right? We all need to understand our strengths and weaknesses. And we also need to learn that it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes adults, we still struggle with that, right? I can do everything by myself, but having that open and honest conversation in your classroom and letting your students know that it's okay and we're not going to know everything. And even me as the teacher, I don't know the answers to all of the questions, and that we all need to ask for help and we all need to learn things every day. It allows them to have practice with friendship skills, which is something that some students with special needs struggle with. How do we make friends? How do we have those conversations? You can use SEL, do direct and explicit instruction, but you also need to take the time to practice those skills. So my lesson or my story in isolation is great, but it's not going to change the students unless I'm practicing it with them on a regular basis. We can teach SEL through games, right? Gamification is beneficial for students with special needs because it helps them work on skills such as impulse control, communicating, turn taking, listening, empathy. All of those skills can come through games. And also you need, SEL lends itself to using visual aids. We have anchor charts, visuals, supports, cards, pictures, role playing, social stories. These are all things that are helpful for students with special needs to imprint on the concepts that we're trying to teach.
So SILAS takes a little bit of all of that, and we've focused originally on special education students. So the social stories, the gamification, we wanted to create something that was really exciting and fun, but also worked in the general social emotional types of skills. So we leverage cutting edge technology. Kids play, basically they think they play a video game, not more than 30 seconds to a minute though. They have to work for it. We've got a number of different curriculums, and it's extremely flexible. So the platform, we work as a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 platform. So every one of you are in a different journey. Every school we work with uses it a little differently because your resources are all different. You might have a guidance counselor helping out and doing some tier 1 stuff, going into classrooms. We've had schools that don't have guidance counselors, and they've got social workers that will do small groups or things. So tier 1 teachers, tier 2 teachers, literally SILAS is a platform that allows you to have social emotional curriculum for everyone in a school. And I'm just going to show you just a little bit about some of the things that we can offer. So first off, there's been a lot of research that computers can increase engagement. And when I say that, I'm not saying like kids are going to be stopping what they're doing and playing on a game for 20 minutes. That's the least of what we do. We just use gamification and technology in a fun way. They have to write social narratives, which are very familiar to social stories, and then they perform them through the game. So as long as their scripts are, which are usually, 2 to 3 pages at most, and you also can do it with children that are not writing. You can be prompted. There's all different ways of doing it, but we use this to increase engagement, the game part. We've done a large study with actually Long Branch, and all competencies rose, some more than others. So it just shows in general that doing anything is better, right? So we believe our platform is great because we're one of the only SEL platforms that actually started with special ed. So we covered that. That box is covered, it's checked, it's really strong, it's great. We've added the tier 1 and tier 2 curriculum ever since COVID. All of our districts were asking for it, and that's how we grew to such a robust platform. So we meet the overall wellness of all students, and what we do is we're connected to the CASEL competencies. As we mentioned before, social skills has been taught in special education rooms for over 40 years. So SEL in general is not new. Teaching it in a tier 1 type of setting is, giving those types of students access to it is, but everything we've done started with special ed and then grew into that tier 1 platform. And our process is simple. We have a 4-step process. We have a screening tool. So you can screen your students. We have very large districts that just use the screener just to identify students that may be on the cusp or may need some extra support. And then you can then teach to that deficit. We have curriculum. We've got a number of different curriculums. We have an executive functioning curriculum. We also have a vocational curriculum and a full tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 K to 12 curriculum for SEL. And if you like, and that gamification part is fun and exciting for some of your students, typically used more in the special ed realm, they can then go that next step further. They write their social narratives and they basically role play it through a live video game that records it and plays it back to them. And then at the end, you can assess it. Everything that's submitted can be looked at and assessed by teachers or admin or counselors. So this is an example of our screening tool. We have a teacher screener, a student screener, parent screener, and pre and post test as well. So the teachers can screen students. We usually see that being done after the student's been screened. So typically you'd have a large district or a small district, they'd screen all their students, 200 students at a building or 8,000 and multiple buildings. They all get screened. And then you look at the data and you start understanding who's your high priorities that you need to work with, who the low priorities are. And then what you can do is get a little more information. You might have somebody that you're not really sure about. And what you can then do is send it to a teacher and say, hey, we're looking for some more information. That way it alleviates the teachers doing a lot of work and they just have to do it for 2 or 3 students in a classroom instead of the entire class. And that's also, it's great, information to have their perspective. We also have the parent screener. So you can send it home to your students. We typically see that, students' parents, we typically see it being done more with students that have IEPs. And then what's really nice is the charts can help identify as a group, as an individual, as a class. So if I'm a guidance counselor going into the 3rd grade, I might have more self-management skills. If I'm a guidance counselor going into the 6th grade, it might be more relationship. You can then use the different curriculum to teach the specific interventions that you want. But again, that goes all the way down to the individual. That one pulled out kid you can look at and say he needs help with social awareness. Small groups with speech language pathologists or social workers. Small groups in a special ed class or even a pullout in a general ed class. You can look at the group dynamic and say, with the time I have, if I'm going to be running a social emotional group, we're going to be talking about certain things, I might want to focus on responsible decision making with this group. So the screening tool is a great asset to have. We then provide a number of different ways to teach the curriculum. So we have things called jump starts. This is what we call our tier 1. These are lessons that anybody in the school can do at any time. Anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. You can break them up. They're very simple, very short. All the curriculum, all the things, all the materials that you would need are very easy. Something that would be in the classroom. We also provide links to videos and books and things that you might want to look at. Really simple. We then also have our tier 2 and tier 3. So you get in your special ed or your pullout groups where we have more robust curriculum. And that's also when they then possibly create a social narrative. Maybe they're working on coping skills and the group is then tasked with creating a narrative of when that might happen. I might have to cope if I wanted to play baseball and I was left out. Now I'm sitting on the bench. What do I do? They think of personalized times and then they write it into a short story and then they act it out, which is the fun part. We also have an amazing executive functioning curriculum written by Dr. George McCluskey himself. He is like a world-renowned guru of executive functioning. We'd love to talk to you about it. We also have a transition vocational curriculum that's very robust for your high school or transition voc students. This is a quick example of one of those movies I was saying. So again, what would happen is at the end of a lesson, typically used more in tier 2. We've seen it used in tier 1 for like big projects like bullying or something where all students might need some help with. But kids would have worked on a specific lesson, like giving compliments or asking good questions. They then work together, they create a narrative. So this movie was created by 2 students in Indiana. They were 6th graders, they were special education students, and they performed it, and I can't tell you how excited they were about it when they heard their voices coming out of the characters.
Wow, that is a really great t-shirt. Where can I buy one?
I bought it at Target. It was $12.
Cool. What section? Is it 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, or 18?
It's 21.
Okay, great. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.
So it's that simple. That video took them 31 seconds to do. So you gave them that cookie, you gave them that reward at the end of working on activities, understanding the topic, working with another partner to create a social narrative. You could have graded that social narrative. It can build your ELA into it. ELA is a wonderful tool to work with SEL into. But what I love about the videos themselves and the stories themselves is they write about themselves. You know, these boys know Target. They know that there's a lot of aisles in Target. They can go there and they buy things. They could talk about the football team they like, the trains that they do, like they play with, whatever it is, they make it personal, which makes it exciting and makes it fun. But this is used throughout the platform. We use this a lot with job skills with their transition voc, where they're talking about different jobs or specific parts of a job. We have vocational settings that they can choose from. And we also go down to students that are very challenged and are unable to write. They can be prompted, but then they can hear it, they can say it. Great for transitions as well. You know, moving from one place to another. And, you know, and then you can you can download all these movies, you can watch it and then show it right before you're about to transition. And then another thing, one of a science teachers in a school sent us a video. She used it as a project in science where they actually wrote out their scenarios of talking to somebody about how they would save the world of plastic. And then they created these wonderful videos in science class. So writing those social narratives are important. That's the biggest thing. That's the research-backed, evidence-based practice that we incorporate. The game is that quick thing that makes them excited about it and makes them want to do it. So that's just a little bit about SILAS. We'd love to talk to you more about it. I know Nicole, Dr. Trainor is absolutely amazing. We're here for you. If you have any questions, Long Branch School is a much better school because she's in it and running their SEL program. However your programs are starting or not starting or whatever, finding somebody that has that passion for it that can help teachers understand it is crucial. You know, I'm sure she'd be around to help talk to you about it if you need it.